third part of this anime begins by showing a young man named Wave is seen entering a room after receiving an invitation from the palace. In the room, he meets a strange man named Balls, who wears a scary mask. Wave looked so awkward because they were alone in the room until finally, Kurome and Seryu, who also received the same invitation. Besides them, there is also a young man named Run and a man who calls himself Dr. Stylish. After that, Esdeath, who will serve as their leader, arrives in the capital and immediately tests her new subordinates' fighting abilities. She seems satisfied with their abilities and then tells them that from now on, they will join an elite team called the Jaegers, where she will act as captain and Run as the strategist and second in command. The appearance of the Jaegers as an elite team that curbs the criminal activity in the capital at the behest of the Emperor caught the attention of Night Raid, especially since they were led by Esdeath, who turned out to be Nagenda's partner when she was still in the Imperial Army. Esdeath was not an opponent to be underestimated. If her subordinates are known to be very cruel, then she can certainly have a much more violent and cruel personality. Even she often commits murder just for the sake of pleasure. On the other hand, Lubbock informs Tatsumi that Esdeath will hold a martial arts tournament with large prize money. He suggests that Tatsumi enter the tournament and win it to send money to his family in the village. The next day, Tatsumi participated in the tournament and faced an opponent of large stature. Tatsumi, who had now become much tougher, could easily defeat the big man. However, unexpectedly, Esdeath, who saw his fight, fell in love with him and took him away with her. Lubbock and Leone, who saw this, looked so dumbfounded and couldn't do anything to help Tatsumi because they didn't want their disguises to be exposed. They also rushed to report what had just happened to Akame, who was currently acting as the leader. Besides that, Nagenda had to go to the revolutionary troops in the border region to hand over the imperial arms they had managed to gather. Akame immediately devised a plan to move their secret base and save Tatsumi, who is now held captive at the Jaegers' headquarters. On the other hand, Tatsumi, who was invited by Esdeath to monitor the members of the Jaegers who were massacring a group of bandits, looked surprised when he saw Seryu, a member of the Jaegers. Tatsumi wanted to avenge Seilei's death on Seryu, but he couldn't act rashly by revealing his true identity as a member of Night Raid. After that, he meets Kurome, who is very similar to Akame. Soon afterwards, Tatsumi asked about their relationship, and Kurome revealed that Akame was her sister. However, because Akame had betrayed the Empire, Kurome became very ambitious to kill her. Esdeath then informs them that they will be hunting beasts in Fake Mountain. She actually just wanted to show her power in front of Tatsumi. The following day, Esdeath assigns Tatsumi and Wave to the west part of the mountains, tasking them to take out a group of tree beasts. Fortunately, they manage to defeat the tree beasts, and when Wave is caught off guard, Tatsumi uses Incursio to escape into a forest. However, Wave immediately noticed it and instead attacked Tatsumi for knowing that the Incursio's user was a member of Night Raid, even though he did not realize that Tatsumi was the one who used Incursio. Wave then uses his Imperial Arms, Grand Chariot, to attack Tatsumi. Even though Wave was a member of the Jaegers, who were enemies of Night Raid, Tatsumi refused to fight him and dodged every his attacks. After Tatsumi manages to swiftly run away from Wave, he encounters a beast. Fortunately, Akame arrives and kills the beast, while Lubbock takes Tatsumi and Akame back into the mountains. At the palace, Esdeath punishes Wave for allowing Tatsumi to escape, yet she is still determined to get him back. Elsewhere, Dr. Stylish, who had suspected Tatsumi from the start, was secretly tracking his tracks and managed to find the secret headquarters of Night Raid. With the help of Team Stylish, a group of modified humans, which is the result of his experiments, Dr. Stylish then launched an attack on the secret headquarters of Night Raid. Tatsumi, Lubbock, and Akame are also involved in a fierce battle with Team Stylish, whose fighting abilities cannot be underestimated because they have been modified in such a way by Dr. Stylish so that it becomes much tougher than before. As the scientist, Dr. Stylish had performed experiments on countless individuals, most of whom were former criminals who received a lighter sentence in exchange for participating. He gave them special abilities that allowed them to do tasks no ordinary human could. Tatsumi looks overwhelmed by one of the Team Stylish members named Kaku, who uses Seilei's Imperial Arm. But then, Mine arrived there still wearing her nightdress and then fired shots at Kaku, killing him. After that, she took Seilei's weapon and then cried because she remembered her beloved friend. At the same time, Akame and Lubbock beat the other Team Stylish members. However, the battle didn't end there because the number of Team Stylish members was far more than Night Raid had expected. During the fight, Nagenda, who had just returned from her trip, arrived there riding Manta Water, a species of Manta Ray-like beast. Seeing this, Dr. Stylish spreads poison, paralyzing all Night Raid members except Tatsumi because he uses armor. Nagenda, who saw that her comrades had been dropped, ordered a new Night Raid member named Susano to help Tatsumi face Team Stylish. Susano has a great fighting ability and can easily defeat Team Stylish, But Dr. Stylish then detonates his minions and causes great damage to Susanoo's body. However, after miraculously healing, Susanoo is revealed to be a humanoid imperial arm. Realizing that poison will not work on Susanoo, Dr. Stylish attempted to escape but was intercepted. Left with no choice, Stylish resorted to his second trump card, injecting himself with a serum that changed him into a huge danger beast while also absorbing the last of his own troops to further increase his power. Susanoo immediately became overwhelmed with Dr. Stylish, whose strength increased. Akame, who has not fully recovered, asks Tatsumi to carry her so she can help defeat Dr. Stylish. On the other hand, Mine also helps them by performing an attack from above the manta water, which can make Dr. Stylish fall. Tatsumi and Akame also took the opportunity to slash him and finally managed to beat him. After the attack incident, Najenda then took the Night Raid members to a highland area which would be the location of their new headquarters. Besides that, she also introduced two new members of Night Raid, namely Susanoo, the Imperial Arm in human form, and a girl named Chelsea, who has the Imperial Arm named Gaia Foundation that allows her to change her appearance at will. While Chelsea's Imperial Arm is a support type, Najenda stated that Chelsea had gotten as many jobs and assassinations as Akame, suggesting that she was quite skilled in combat or assassination. Meanwhile, at the Jaeger's headquarters, Esdeath concludes that Dr. Stylish had been killed by Night Raid because he had just disappeared. Upon learning that, Seiryu became very angry and even angrier with Night Raid for killing the two most valuable men in her life, namely Ogre, her mentor, and Dr. Stylish. Sometime later, the Night Raid members began training to increase their respective strengths because the enemy they were about to face would be far more terrifying than before. Tatsumi and Leone are seen training together by battling monsters, where Leone becomes impressed by his ability to match his powers with Incursio, just as Bulette did. While Leone is more focused on increasing her physical strength as much as possible because she does not want to use her Imperial Arm. Elsewhere, a herd of monsters carried out an attack on some of the villagers. The incident quickly spread to the palace, where the Prime Minister ordered Esdeath and the Jaegers to destroy the swarm of monsters. However, he asked Esdeath to bring some monsters alive for further investigation. She immediately gathered the members of the Jaegers to plan and carry out the mission. Not long after, the Jaegers arrived just as the herd of monsters was about to attack several people riding in the horse carriage. All swiftly rescued the people in the carriage, while Esdeath used her Imperial Arm to freeze several monsters alive and handed them over to the Prime Minister. After completing the mission, Balls told Wave and the others that he was not a good person and once burned a village because all its inhabitants had contracted a deadly infectious disease. Balls has also executed convicts on death row by burning them, and he did all that by order of the kingdom. Wave said Balls was only doing his job and not merely enjoying hurting or killing other people. Balls is very grateful that Wave sees him as a good person and that other people think that way about him besides his wife and daughter. On the other hand, Night Raid also reported continuing monster attacks, even though the Jaegers and the Imperial Army had intervened. Agenda predicts that the number of monsters will increase so that the Jaegers and the Imperial Army are so overwhelmed that they must act immediately for the safety of everyone. Chelsea seemed to question this because, according to her, eradicating monsters was not Night Raid's job. But Tatsumi then emphasized that Night Raid's job was to protect the residents from all threats, including attacks by monsters. Chelsea actually said that because she worries about her comrades' safety. At the same time, Run meets Esdeath and tells her about the research results on monsters that were once humans. Run assumed the monsters resulted from Dr. Stylish because they appeared after he disappeared. Run estimated that the monsters might have escaped from Dr. Stylish lab. However, Esdeath concluded that the monsters were not the result of Dr. Stylish but rather someone else who purposely let go of the swarm of monsters for some reason. Esdeath's assumption seems to be starting to come true because when Seiryu and Koro are fighting against a pack of monsters, someone seems to be watching their fight from a distance. Afterwards, on a mission with Lubbock, Tatsumi questioned his past, who turned out to be like Najenda. Lubbock actually comes from a wealthy family. However, after seeing her for the first time, he immediately fell in love with her and decided to join the Imperial Army so that he could always be by her side. When Najenda chooses to defect and join the Revolutionary Army, Lubbock follows the woman he loves. Even when she formed Night Raid, he remained by her side. During their conversation, Tatsumi began noticing that the mountainous area they were exploring looked suspicious. Because of that, he took the initiative to check the top of the mountain to monitor the overall situation. However, how surprised he was when he accidentally met Esdeath, also on patrol around there. Not long after, a swarm of monsters suddenly appeared and immediately attacked them. Tatsumi was about to take the opportunity to escape, but Esdeath could easily overthrow the monsters with just one hit. Not wanting his identity as a member of Night Raid to be discovered by Esdeath, Tatsumi reasoned that he was testing his abilities by fighting against monsters. Meanwhile, Lubbock, still waiting for Tatsumi downstairs, was surprised by the appearance of a man who turned out to be the mastermind behind the monster's attacks. However, the mysterious man instead heads to the top of the mountain, where he is then confronted by Esdeath and Tatsumi. The mysterious man uses his imperial arm to instantly create a portal that can move them to another place. Tatsumi, now on a tropical island with Esdeath, thinks he is trapped in an illusory world created by the mysterious man. However, she denied it because everything looked real, like the two giant monsters that suddenly attacked them. In the fight against the monsters, Tatsumi finally finds out how terrible the power possessed by Esdeath is because she manages to defeat them without any effort. After exploring the island, Esdeath finally realized that the island was connected by a portal created by the mysterious man. They had to wait for the portal to open again and they could return to the capital. While waiting, Tatsumi asked about Esdeath's past, hoping to get important information that he could report to Night Raid. So that she would not suspect, Tatsumi also told about his past as an ordinary young man who came from the countryside and went to the capital to find a job with a sizable income. Surprisingly, Esdeath unhesitatingly told him about her past. Esdeath told him she was from the Partas clan in the northern frontier lands. She said that she was very close with her father, the clan chief, due to her mother's death at the hand of a superclass danger beast. She was a skilled and formidable fighter even at such a young age. Her father told her that in the north, the strong live and the weak die, a creed she kept close to her heart. One day, Esdeath returned from an outing to find her tribe destroyed, with everyone either dead or dying. Her father was mortally wounded and soon passed away in her arms. From that day on, she vowed to herself to become stronger. Later, Esdeath joined the Empire's military, rising through the ranks rapidly. At some point, the Prime Minister allowed her to choose the Imperial arms. She noticed the demon's extract that was chained off from the others. Esdeath felt that it was calling for her and chose it. Instead of drinking one glass, which would have been enough, she drank the whole thing. Turning to the present, Esdeath also plans to subdue a danger beast to bring them back to the capital. Not long after, a spell passed over them, so Esdeath rushed after it. At the same time, the portal suddenly opened, and Tatsumi rushed into the portal to escape from her. After successfully returning to his original place, Tatsumi used his armor and activated invisible mode to hide from Esdeath. On the other hand, Esdeath, who thought that Tatsumi was sent to another place, finally decided to leave that place immediately and felt sure that she would meet him again. Meanwhile, Tatsumi, who saw her departure, said they would meet as enemies at the next meeting and fight each other. This is the end of the third part of this anime.